Welcome to the Stop, Breathe, Feel, Create podcast. I'm your host, Lauren G. Koch, and you are listening to the first ever episode, and I'm so happy you're here. I've been playing around with the idea of starting a new podcast for a while now. Back during the COVID lockdown, which started the spring of 2020 in the U.S., I started hosting a weekly Instagram live, which then evolved into YouTube lives, called Artists Chatting with T, interviewing artists from all over the world. I was in the final few months of my MFA studies at the University of Maryland when we were asked to start quarantining, and I even had to install my final exhibition in my partner's garage shed. The podcast, or rather the lives, were a way of staying connected with friends and colleagues that I miss dearly, and also amplify their inspiring stories and projects. As the world started re-emerging and technological advancements in live streaming started moving faster than I could learn them, I had to shelve the project for a while. As I started playing around with resurrecting the idea, I found the format that I had previously used and the theme were very limiting and honestly frustrating from a production standpoint, at least. So I decided to build it, as in this podcast, around my life and to have a little bit more content flexibility. You'll learn more about my unique journey as the podcast proceeds, but what I'll give you right now are the cliff notes. I'm originally from the southernmost tip of my beloved Appalachian mountain range in northwest Georgia. Now I'm an integrative well-being practitioner, educator, authenticity and spiritual coach, as well as an intuitive creative based in Frederick, Maryland. During and post-grad, I started expanding my knowledge of spirituality, holistic well-being, and energy healing modalities, when all the physical, mental, and spiritual issues I had been ignoring for most of my life left me navigating how to slow way down due to major chronic pain and nervous system issues, which still affect me today. Our modern medical system, academia, and my previous religious practices had left me extremely jaded. I was left with more questions than answers. And the healing process, well, it's been messy. And, well, it's far from over, right? Sometimes we wish there was a Band-Aid fix, but there's not. We have to do it step by step, a little bit at a time. But I know I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for having these experiences, so that I can act as a beacon for hope for others who have been experiencing their own trials and tribulations. My current intentions with the Stop, Breathe, Feel, Create podcast will be to share 2 to 4 episodes a month, released on Wednesdays. Side note, it always amazes me how serendipitous things can happen, or maybe they're not so serendipitous. When I originally wrote down Wednesday on my podcast planning outline, I was mostly looking at my calendar for days that I had a lull in activities. And I briefly thought, hey, I think Wednesday is the day of communication, and made a mental note to look at the weekly correspondences. Not saying that I put a ton of weight into astrological events holding sway over us individually, but there's still something deep inside me that calls me to trust. And I'll probably jump into navigating healthy skepticism, curiosity, and trust around esoteric topics at a later date. But sure enough, when I went to look, Wednesday is associated with Mercury and Odin, making it a day of curiosity, change, cunning, communication, and creativity. Call this stored away knowledge or the inner knowing, who knows. But enough on correspondences for now. I got excited and jumped down a rabbit hole, as I do sometimes. Anyway, I'll be allowing space for the podcast to grow and move, as well as my evolving community, keeping flow in mind. and allowing space for my own self-care needs as I start exploring dipping my toe back into the realms of podcasting. For those that know me, I'm always learning. Call it the results of my neurospicy, hyper-focusing, hobby-collecting brain, but I don't set things aside easily. If I'm really interested in something, I hone my skills in that specific area and ingrain them into my body. Otherwise, I'll learn enough about the topic to be able to share an educated opinion on it and point you in the right direction to an actual expert. Being a multifaceted person with an undying need to know and do things for myself, well, it's caused much contention throughout my life as people, typically teachers, mentors, or your run-of-the-mill busybodies, they've wanted me to narrow my focus and only do one thing. And by that, I feel like they mean be normal, get a 9 to 5, the like. But I personally like to believe that I've been regathering the tools and skills I've honed during many past lives as fast as I can so that I can share them with those who also crave knowledge and expansion in this life. Who knows? And that's not even the point. The point is, since the episodes will feature a variety of topics from my ever-expanding toolkit, I've decided to organize the podcast episodes into a few different series, which will also allow my brain to bite off one chunk at a time rather than throwing everything at it all at once and focus on quality over quantity. The Musings series, which you may have already gotten a taste of this on my YouTube channel, Keeper of the Old Ways, these episodes won't be changing much, as these will continue to be general rants on topics such as deep dives into ways of discovering magic in the mundane, combating the inner critic, learning to trust the inner knowing by connecting to the divine within each and every one of us, exploring topics on unity consciousness and spirituality, as well as tips for supporting our well-being through becoming our most authentic and abundant selves in co-creation with the universe or divine, however you like to look at it. But yeah, that pretty much covers it. The next series, Igniting the Flame, is conversation with light bringers, change makers, and creatives. I'm super excited to bring back conversations like this with my community and especially be sharing space with these amazing people to amplify their inspiring stories and exciting projects being brought into existence. Living the Wheel of the Year series started and will continue in tandem with my blog series on the same topic. It will feature short monthly episodes where I share a brief forecast of the moon cycles as well as prompts for deepening our connection to intuition and self and the divine. You'll also find information on any special dates such as equinox and solstice celebrations that will help connect you even further to the rhythms of nature, inspired by the Wheel of the Year, of course, along with suggestions for magical correspondences that you can add to your practice, further deepening and amplifying your intentions throughout the month. And then, finally, we have the Pause series, which will feature mindfulness prompts and creative demos to encourage you to stop, breathe, feel, create. These episodes will often complement the Living the Wheel of the Year series episodes inspired by the moon cycles and seasons. I'm so grateful for my growing community of supporters on Patreon, which fuel me and allow me to continue developing educational and inspiring content, just like the Stop, Breathe, Feel, Create podcast. While some of these podcasts will be available also on YouTube, some content only my Patreon supporters will get full access to those, like behind-the-scenes experiences with bloopers and special topic conversations with guests. So if you'd like to also become a supporter, subscribe to my email list, or connect with me one-on-one to learn more about my services, you'll find all the details linked below in the show notes. So there you have it. That's where I'll leave you for now. And thank you so much for listening and being a part of this ever-growing community. Many blessings, and remember to stop, breathe, feel, create.